I was a respected Muslim scholar, and if I'm being honest, I never thought I would be the one sitting here, telling this kind of story. Because where I come from, people like me don't question things like this. We answer questions. We don't become them. But everything started changing the day I heard something I couldn't explain, and what made it worse was not the question itself. It was the silence that followed inside me. I remember it clearly. I was in a familiar setting, surrounded by people who trusted me, people who had come to learn. Someone asked something simple, something I had answered many times before. I had the words ready. I knew exactly how I was supposed to respond. But this time, I didn't. There was a pause. And in that pause, something broke. Not loudly, not visibly, but deep inside me, something shifted in a way I couldn't control. I gave an answer eventually. On the outside, nothing changed. No one noticed anything unusual. The conversation moved on like it always did. But I didn't move on, because I knew something wasn't right. That moment stayed with me longer than it should have. I kept replaying it in my head. Why did I hesitate? Why did it feel different this time? What was missing? And the more I thought about it, the more uncomfortable I became. At first, I tried to ignore it. I told myself it was just overthinking. Maybe I was tired. Maybe I just needed rest. But deep down, I knew that wasn't true. Because the feeling didn't go away. It followed me. Into my studies. Into my prayers. Into my quiet moments when no one else was around. And that's when I started noticing something else. Something that scared me even more. I wasn't just remembering that moment anymore. I was starting to question other things too. Small things at first. Things I had never paid attention to before. Things I had accepted without hesitation for years. And suddenly, they didn't feel as solid as they used to. That's when I realized this wasn't just a random thought. This was the beginning of something. Something I wasn't prepared for. I tried to fight it. I really did. I told myself, go deeper. Study more. Strengthen your understanding. Because that's what I had always believed. That if you search hard enough, you will find clarity. So I went back to what I knew. I read more. I studied more. I revisited everything I had learned. But instead of finding peace, I found more questions. And that's when fear started creeping in. Not fear of being wrong, but fear of where this might lead. Because I began to realize something I had never admitted before. I had always defended what I believed, but I had never truly challenged it. And now that I was starting to, I didn't know how to stop. There were nights I couldn't sleep. Because now, I was not just standing up for what I believed anymore. I was comparing. I was looking at things side by side. I was asking too many questions in a way I had never asked them before in my life. And the more I did that, the less sure I sounded even to myself. Something started happening inside me that I could not push away. I would sit down to think, and I would come out of it more uncertain than when I started. I would look for answers, and the answers would only bring more questions. And slowly, without me planning it, the confidence I had always carried started getting smaller. For the first time in my life, I was not completely sure about what I believed. That feeling was not small. It hit me hard. Because being sure was not just something I had. It was who I was. People around me knew me as someone who had answers. Someone who did not shake. Someone who could stand in a room full of doubt and still hold steady. That was me. That had always been me. And now I was losing that. Slowly. Quietly. And I could not say a word about it to anyone. Do you know what it feels like to be surrounded by people who trust you completely while you are quietly falling apart inside? Because that is exactly what it felt like. Every time someone came to me with a question, I felt the weight of it more than I used to. Not because I did not know what to say. I still knew the words. I still knew the answers I was supposed to give. But something had changed in the place where those answers came from. And I could feel that change every single time I opened my mouth. Every conversation became harder. Every answer felt heavier. Because I was not fully sure I still believed it the same way I used to. I kept going through my days like nothing was wrong. I kept showing up. I kept talking. I kept being the person everyone expected me to be. But inside, I was in a completely different place. A place that was quiet and uncomfortable and full of things I did not want to look at. Then came the moment I cannot forget. I was not looking for it. I was not expecting anything. But I came across something. Something that took all the questions I had been avoiding and put them in one place. And for the first time, instead of feeling confused, I felt clear. Too clear. And that clearness scared me more than the confusion ever did. Because when something becomes clear, you cannot pretend you do not see it. You cannot go back to the way things were before you understood. And what I was now seeing clearly was something I had been turning away from for a long time. If this was true, then everything I had built my life on would have to be looked at again. Not a little bit. Not just one part of it, all of it. Every choice. Every belief. Everything I had said and done and stood for. All of it would have to be questioned from the beginning. And I was not ready for that. I tried to stop myself. I said to myself, this is enough. Do not go any further. Close this and walk away. Go back to your life. You do not have to do this. But the problem with seeing something clearly is that you cannot unsee it. Once it is there, it is there. You can look away, but you know it is still there waiting for you every time you come back. And that is when the real fight started. Not with anyone around me. Not with anyone I could point to. The fight was inside me. Just me, sitting with what I had seen, trying to decide what to do with it. Because now I had to make a choice. I could ignore it. I could push it down and keep living the way I had been living. Keep showing up. Keep answering questions. Keep being who everyone thought I was. Or I could follow it. Follow the truth I had seen. Go wherever it led, no matter what was waiting on the other side. And I knew that if I chose to follow it, there would be a cost. Not a small cost. Not something I could deal with quietly and then move on. A real cost. The kind that touches everything. My reputation. The way people saw me. The relationships I had spent years building. The identity I had carried my whole life. All of it would be at risk. And that is what made the next moment so hard. Because I stood there knowing that whatever I chose, my life would not look the same after it. There was no version of this where I walked away unchanged. And when that moment came, I made a choice. A choice I never imagined I would make. But what happened immediately after that decision is something I still struggle to explain. Because that was the moment everything started falling apart. And at the same time, something new began. But what that was and what it cost me is something I wasn't ready to face yet. And if I'm being honest, that next step is where the Rayal story begins. Because what happened after that decision is something I've never fully explained before. It's the part people don't see. The part that changed everything. And it's also the moment that pushed me closer to becoming someone I never thought I would be. I'll share that in the next part, because that's where everything becomes real. What would you have done if you were me? Would you have stayed or walked away? So if you followed this far, make sure you stay connected.